If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Most people say, I'm starting this business because I'm passionate about biscuits and pimento cheese, which I am, but it's not really about that anymore. I mean, I feel that passion for the business, but it is not me going in and putting on an apron and making some biscuits and walking out the door. It is sitting down and crunching numbers and figuring out how are we going to make payroll and, all the things that happen in a business. But it's less about why I started it and more about the business. And I think you don't know that when you're new. And you probably don't know that because if you did, you wouldn't start one because it's so hard. And, it's like childbirth. You forget so that you can have another child, because if you remembered, you'd go, I'm not doing that again. And if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Carrie Morey, thanks so much for coming on The Marketing Factor. I remember the first time that we met, 2012. I just started Cobble Hill. You were filming a piece for the New York Times, I think it was, and I came up to your bakery and there was just chaos everywhere, but kids running around. But I was just so impressed with how composed you were and how thoughtful you were in your answers in the video that we were filming. And it just seemed like you really kind of had your stuff together. So, I'm in awe of you. You've always been a huge inspiration for us. So, I'm really interested to kind of hear a little bit about your story. I mean, really where I want to start is you started the business with your mom. I've always found that interesting.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And you have a great memory because I couldn't remember why we were doing that video, but you're right. It was for the New York Times, and I'm sure my children were running around, and I appreciate the sentiment of it looked like I knew what I was doing or had it together. I didn't then, I don't now, and I expect that it'll continue that way, but you just do what you do, right? And you try your best every day. So I started a handmade biscuit business in 2005 with my mother, Callie's recipe. And it really started as a way for me to work within my passion, which I knew was food, specifically Southern food, but also have a lifestyle that I wanted to lead and had always known was going to be my number one, which is raising our daughters. And trying in 2004 and 5 to make that happen, to make balance happen as a female, to be able to have it all was not as easy as it is today. Today, our options for careers and flex work is so different. So I was really trying to figure out how can I have a restaurant job but not be a restaurant. And so I came up with the crazy idea to take my mom's best product from her catering business, which was her country ham biscuits, and start a mail order only business through the internet when exactly no one was buying anything online, much less high-end country ham biscuits. So I always tell people that if I could do that, then you can do anything, because most people don't even know what a country ham is. And I only had one product, and it was certainly a leap of faith, and I was fearless in it because I believed in the product. But I look back on that now and I think, how did I ever get to where I am today as a result of that? So very interesting.
That's a great story. And I think probably the most interesting part about it is starting on the mail order side. What was marketing like back then? Like, how did you get the brand out? How did you tell people about it?
Well, we didn't have social media. I thought, I'll just start a business and people will buy and come to the website. But, back in 2005, we were on the cusp of a recession. Some people didn't even have email. Many had no website. And I just thought these biscuits are the best in the country and everyone that tastes them wants them. And so it's just going to happen. And it was beyond slow in the beginning. However, I was raising little children, little babies, 3 in a 4-year span. And so it was okay for me because I didn't really know what I was doing. And I only had about 2 to 3 hours a day to give during nap times. And so it worked until it didn't when they started going to preschool for a couple hours. And then my 2 hours, went to 4. And so then I became more hungry for more business, and the business wasn't there. And so I had to figure out other ways to sell the biscuits.
What were some of those ways that you kind of figured out? How did you, I mean, it seems like pretty quickly you were on the Today Show, on the New York Times. Like, how did you take a mail order company with a very niche product, especially at that time,
right,
to get in front of a bigger audience? That just seems like very unique.
I think that is a great way to describe it. It was unique. I think I had pipe dreams, but I think I believed in it, and it was true passion that kept me going. But most importantly, I hired a really good publicist named Libba Osborne.
Who we both know. Yes.
Who we both know and love, who introduced us. And Libba is just one of those people that comes into your life and you're like, this person is just amazing at what she does and thoughtful and truly cares and is not a typical PR person. And she had great relationships with all the businesses that you named. And she was able to say, hey, let me send you some biscuits and see what you think. And her approach was not salesy. It was, I believe in this product. It's a great story. And because it was. And that is how we really got our start, which helped us get an email list going. But I still had no idea what to do with that. I was flying blind and just kind of was reading, listening, trying to find ideas, and I think the best idea that my now book agent gave me was, well, you cook all the time. People would love to have your recipes. You need to take your email newsletter list, which we had gained, a couple thousand over the course of the first 3 years through the Today Show airing and the New York Times and places that we had been written about, and people would come to the website and then we were able to capture them. And she said, you should write a recipe blog, and then you're not always asking, you're giving something. And especially if the recipes aren't all about your products. And they never were, because I cooked so many baked so many biscuits at work that when I came home, I wasn't making biscuits, I was making supper. And so that's how the blog started. And I think that helped gain traction, but it certainly was still beyond slow. And it was very seasonal. And we would bake once a month, one day, and stockpile, I can remember, 3,600 units. It would take us 12 hours to do that. We can do that now in like a couple hours. So the evolution is really an interesting concept too, because we're making them all by hand. But it just kind of grew slowly and steadily. And when I got hungry for more, I just started dreaming about how could I sell more and what were the other verticals? Where can I go?
Yeah, that is something I definitely want to touch on, because what did it take to kind of like expand beyond kind of the local market, getting into grocery stores, coming up with now like in eateries and stuff that you have? What was that process like?
Everything happened authentically out of a need to, okay, I have a little more time. I'm going to try to sell them in this area. So, once we realized that the online was going to be incredibly seasonal, or when we got written about or on the Today Show and we would get a bump, then we started saying, okay, well, that's not going to make a good business model. How can I get more regular business? And that's when I said, I'm going to go to Ted's Butcher Block, who was my very first customer here in Charleston. And I'm going to, sit down with them, give them samples and say, hey, would you consider selling these to your customers? And boom, a wholesale business was born. And, we had about 5 customers in Charleston. And once I was able to understand that cadence, which was still very slow. We were selling biscuits for a dozen for $19. That's not something you're putting in your cart every week like milk and eggs. But as soon as I got that down, I was making, delivering, packing, everything. I was doing all of that. Then I would go out to Somerville and Mount Pleasant and just try to gain a couple new ones every so often. And I can remember getting to Columbia and getting the gourmet shop. And I thought, I have 20 stores. This is great. Let's go to Wilmington. Let's go to Savannah. And so just kind of slowly going out from there. And that was how it started. Never did I think.
No salespeople for you were doing this yourself.
Yes. I did at one point hire a part-time salesperson who was amazing. And she really got us. She was getting like 20 accounts a month. She just is one of those natural sales people. And that was really great for a few years. And then we went to the Fancy Food Show, which is an organization that kind of connects all the people in CPG. Anything from Lay's potato chips down to like the finest handcrafted chocolate. So you've got everything from all over the world, not just the United States. And we won our first year. We won a Sophie Award, which is like the Oscars of food. We didn't even have a booth. Jacques Pepin gave me my award. I thought, what is going on? I mean, it was just this surreal moment. And I just wanted to get into Dean and DeLuca. That was my goal. If I could get into all the Dean and DeLucas, which is no longer. And I did. I got into all of the Dean and DeLucas at one point and was lucky enough to get out before they went out of business. But we decided the next year to have a booth, which was a massive amount of money and a massive amount of undertaking. But it kind of helped us because we didn't have a salesperson and we were able to be there and people would come by the booth and taste. And so in 2011, we got our first grocery store chain, which was the Fresh Market, 150 locations. And she came by the booth and she said, I'm going to send you a purchase order. And I said, okay. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. And I was in Idaho with my husband for the summer. At that time, we would drive across country because he's from Idaho with all of our girls every summer. And I had so much free time, I'd work from there remotely. And she sent a purchase order for 9 pallets of product, $90,000. That was more than we had made in a year. I didn't know what a pallet was. I had to Google it. And then she wanted to know what my pallet configuration was. And I didn't know. I had never made a pallet. I went across the street to the Meeting Street Piggly Wiggly, talked to my friend, the manager there, and I said, I just got an order for 9 pallets. I don't have freezer space. I don't know how to ship them. I don't know how to pack them. And he said, well, take your delivery vehicle and figure out how many you can fit in your delivery vehicle and create a pallet out of that. So I laid the seats all flat, took out the 3 car seats, and I was able to fit 63 case boxes in my Suburban. And that was our pallet configuration. So that's how I figured out how to ship a pallet. And then the Piggly Wiggly let me store everything in their freezers until I scheduled freight to come pick up the first order. Because I had no loading dock, I was on Meeting Street next to the Church's Fried Chicken in an office building that I had converted into a bakery.
Wow. I mean, that's just, for one, it sounds like you had some great partners along the way to help you with a Piggly Wiggly to kind of allow you to store space there, to kind of tell you what to do. When you're kind of, I guess when you're entering these, when these new spaces, are you adapting your products too to kind of fit the local taste, or is it just the same product?
I think by the time I got into the Fresh Market, we had 3 or 4 flavors and they took all 3. And we had, not only did I did not do my market research. What did the other biscuit companies sell their products for? How many are in a bag? What does the packaging look like? None of that was done because it kind of just happened. I started this individual, like small mom and pop wholesale program, and then we got into this big grocery and we were so excited, but we had no idea what to do with it. And we were selling them at the time for $20 a dozen. And they sold, which is mind-blowing to me, especially now that I've learned a little bit and now we're in grocery and many more groceries and it's funny, it's harder now to sell and make a profit than it was then, which is something that we have been struggling with for the last 3 years, which that could be a whole nother podcast. But
and why is that? Because why do you think that is the case, that it's harder to make the money?
So as you grow, you have to put in the infrastructure to support the growth. right? So we needed more people. We didn't physically have enough bodies to do the work. It was labor intensive. It is labor intensive on the baking side, but also on the packing side and the logistics side. It was almost easier when we just had one little store and we knew that they were going to order once a month and we could prepare. Now we have, I don't even know how many stores, and we don't know their cadence. We have to schedule freight for some take slotting. So, I mean, it's a total, and I never did promotions in the beginning. I mean, I was like, this is the price. If you want to buy it, buy it. There's no slotting. There's no promotions. I just didn't know anything about the CPG industry. And so, it was just easier back then because it was just me and a couple part-time employees, and we hustled to do everything. And as we grew, you need to add salaried employees, and you need to give them health insurance and 401k and vacation, and you need them to help you do the work, because I couldn't continue to grow the business if I didn't have people to help. And so then, your margin goes.
So how do you think about, as you're kind of expanding there, how are you maintaining the storytelling and the Southern culture aspect of the brand when there's so many different retailers that you're working with, different ways to kind of communicate your story? How do you keep it consistent?
I have been really lucky. And again, this is part of Libba's expertise, is helping direct the narrative and keeping it cohesive and keeping our brand the same, whether it is the look, the feel, the words, everything. But it's also authentic. I mean, we are still 19 years in making biscuits by hand every day. I mean, a lot has changed about the business, but we're still doing it the same way, which, by the way, is a great story, but it's not necessarily great for the bottom line, right? Because we may be able to make more biscuits, but it is so much harder now to make money. And a lot of that has to do with our growing, but it also has to do with the economy and inflation and all the things as well. So it's kind of this perfect storm of things. But I think growing a business we're still a small business, but we are on the cusp of hitting certain milestones that make it very difficult if you don't continue to grow, you don't see the efficiencies. We're not seeing the efficiencies right now. We're just stuck in this weird spot.
Yeah, that's interesting. So when you're considering your marketing approach, let's say, it's probably pretty complex there, because you have to target the grocery stores that you're in, and then of course your eateries. And then the e-commerce store is kind of a whole different beast. And how do you think about marketing in that approach there that you take?
Well, as you know, because we work with you, we are really new to the SEO game. I mean, we started in the middle of pandemic, dabbling in it, didn't have the right partner. It didn't work very well. We've just always had this philosophy that everything is word of mouth. And if I can feed you a biscuit, you'll never forget the taste, and you'll understand why ours are so different. And I really had a hard time switching from that. I didn't believe in SEO. It really took you all proving that to us, that it really works. And, we are constantly learning. And I think my fear is that that runway, is it long and wide, or is it short, and will we hit a roadblock? I'm just fascinated by how it all works. But keeping the story authentic, keeping the product really good, keeping the brand cohesive and true to our roots is what I think grounds us. And then we hope that we surround ourselves with partners that help elevate us and get us to the next set of goals, success-wise.
So are you thinking, when you're trying to measure the success of any of the marketing campaigns that you do, whether that's through us or just any other types of PR efforts, just organic social efforts, what are you looking for from just a return on investment standpoint? What are kind of the things that you're always tracking against? Obviously, you want the most revenue for the least amount, but what are some other things that kind of you feel good about when you're looking into this?
I think gaining new eyes, getting new people to the site is incredibly important, not just going after revenue from your existing long-term customers, but trying to broaden our horizons for new customers, which has been really great. So we may not make as much money in any given month, but if we're bringing in new people to the site, then we can market to them and remarket to them. That is valuable, right? I mean, to me, that's like back in the day, that's like getting a new email, right? Once you have them, then you can, try to market to them, and then just trying to figure out how they want to be marketed to. Do they like the discounts? Do they like the bulk buys? Do they like, free shipping, whatever it is, and learning the nuances of that. And I've been incredibly grateful to have Tara on our team, because she has really taken this on as her own project and educated herself, and then in turn trying to educate me. But she's been invaluable.
Well, yeah, we love her. And so if you're thinking, you're coming from this approach where, if someone had a taste of the biscuit, they'd be a lifelong customer. So there's this brand loyalty aspect ingrained in your thinking already. So if you think about that onto an e-commerce site, what have you done to kind of foster deeper connections and inspire loyalty? What are some tactics you've taken there?
So many things. I think it goes back to when we did get our first grocery store. I was every spring break for the first 5 years of working with the Fresh Market. I trucked my children down for spring break to Florida, and they sat by the pool or the beach, and I went into the stores and did demos for years, just trying to get people to taste them. And because to be behind a door in a freezer it's hard to sell that. So that was one. The second thing is providing trying to provide incredible customer service. The customer is always right. Whatever it takes to make it happen. Handwritten notes, loyalty programs that started as easily as going through our Shopify site back in the day and finding out who placed 10 or more orders in the year and handwriting them a note. Now apps have made this so much easier, but connecting with our customers, and that's hard to do when you are selling online, right? It's a lot easier to do with brick and mortar. And I think I did it backwards. I started with an online store because I wanted that lifestyle, and I didn't want to own a restaurant. But what I realized is that I needed a brick and mortar to get the word out. And that's how Hot Little Biscuit was born, as kind of an outpost to Callie's of, if I can just get people to taste the biscuits and they can come in and see our aesthetic and love this little sliver of a space, they'll remember it. And then they'll go home and they'll want more. And it wasn't because I wanted to open a bunch of restaurants. It was because I was trying to market the online and the grocery business. And it worked, but it was never a plan that I would actually make money in the stores. It was, can I just break even? And this would be an advertising marketing expense. And I think I took a chance and I got really lucky, way beyond lucky, because we're now getting ready to celebrate our 10th year at Hot Little Biscuit on King Street, which is mind-blowing to me that we still have people lining up on the weekends to come eat our biscuits. What a compliment and a gift that was, and a lovely surprise.
Well, it's so smart. Yeah, I mean, just that alone, being able to talk to your customers. Right. It's something that a lot of brands who just start in the CPG and the e-commerce space, they don't get to do that. They don't get to see someone actually enjoying their product. And I think that you are able to kind of communicate the product, the culture that you're trying to create with the brand, the storytelling aspect, just through experiential. And it's something that's lost a lot. What are some of the trends that you're seeing now in the eatery and restaurant space that you're kind of having to evolve to post-COVID, or even just with, especially with Charleston being, so so crowded now with food options. What are some things that you've seen that are changing?
Well, I think there's a lot more ordering online, which is fine when you're just trying to get the volume, but obviously it's not the same experience. The whole point was to have people come in. Then you have the logistics of, you want a ton of people to come in, but you want to be able to serve them well. The goal is to try to have a really great experience in a quick serve restaurant, which is challenging because even though you train your team to greet them, have a conversation, tell them where they can get them when they go home, ask where they're from, like to have that knowledge and have that conversation while you have a line out the door and you're trying to make everybody happy. It's like this fine line, right? And trying to get them to sign up for a loyalty program, because we literally have 1 minute to get their order and tell them everything that we've been doing for the last 19 years and why they need to be a customer forever. That's hard. And it's especially hard to train a teenager who is most likely the one working the front counter to do all those things. Who,
For
teenagers
sure.
like to stare at their phones. They don't want to look at someone in the eye and explain to them. And I always say to them, this is your stage and you are bringing in customers for us, but you're also responsible for tips for your entire team. So you have a very important role. That is a very hard thing to do. And so to combat that, I try to be in the stores, even if it's just for 5 minutes every day that I'm not traveling for work. So I'm always in there. I'm always there to support. I'm always there to talk to the customers and try to be that ambassador for the company.
How many orders would you say are coming in online versus people that are, standing and waiting to actually get the food and enjoy it, near there?
Well, one of my fatal flaws is that I'm not a numbers person. I'm a creative. So I wouldn't even begin to know the comparison. I mean, I know what both do and as far as their gross revenue, but I don't know how that equates to how many customers versus how many orders. But I do feel like the goal of opening that store was to market the business. And I do feel like those people that have a great experience are leaving wanting more and they are ordering. And we are encouraging that through discount codes and just to get them to go to the website, just to get them to shop at Costco or Whole Foods or whatever is in their area. So, we have signage up everywhere. You can get our stuff here and look at these biscuits are fully baked. And most people that come to the restaurant have no idea that we started as an online business and that they can order. And so that is an aha moment of, I feel like it gives us a little bit of an edge because now there's so many biscuit restaurants all of a sudden that have popped up everywhere, not just in Charleston, but all over the country. And that's a great thing because that just brings more awareness to biscuits, which we love. And there's plenty of room for everybody in the space. But I do feel like we have these like multiple verticals within our business that, while incredibly challenging to manage from a business perspective, it is giving us more of an edge, I guess I would say, for our customers to create more than just a one-time visit, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So kind of switching gears a little bit. I mean, the eateries are super interesting. I think that's such a great, the fact that you have them in general is just a great marketing outlet for us. But so what, in terms of online or, for grocery store marketing, what is kind of like a crazy marketing strategy that you've employed that you kind of thought maybe wasn't going to work, but maybe ended up working? Or maybe the flip side of that, something you thought really would work, but actually flopped. Is there anything that you've done in, over the past 10 years that really surprised you from a marketing standpoint?
Well, I think that opening the eateries was, never in my wildest dreams did I think that would be a good idea and bring to us so many customers and continue to a decade later. The other thing I would say that was an incredible opportunity that I never would have thought would have worked, nor would I get the opportunity, was writing cookbooks. I mean, I have no business writing a cookbook. I'm not a chef, but it made sense. I had an audience. I'd been writing recipes and publishing them online, and a couple of people that bought the books. So it's certainly nothing to do with what we're doing online. I mean, each book has a chapter on biscuits, but it's more a story of my experiences, my life, my growing up, my raising our family. So people want to connect with people, right? So they want to know the story behind the biscuit. And when they do that, chances are they're going to be a customer for life, because then they feel connected to you. And that's also something that we see in the restaurants when I'm there. People want to meet me, which is crazy, right? I mean, I'm just a business owner that started a business, but people want to connect. And I think we've had incredible opportunities with press, many different opportunities, like being on Top Chef. I mean, that's like a pinch me moment. Who in the hell ever gets the opportunity that isn't a chef to be able to be on Top Chef? And then, of course, probably the biggest one to date is having our own docuseries on PBS, which I would have never thought that I would be able to have that.
How did that come about? Maybe tell me a little bit about that, because I remember hearing about that and then being like, wow, she's going to have her own series on PBS.
Yeah. Just as you were saying, wow, how did that come to be? I was saying the same thing, even up until the day that we had the premiere. I just had a producer reach out to me, and this was not the first time that a producer had reached out to me. And Libba and I would talk about it over the years, and she said, "Do you want me to pursue television for you? You seem to be really comfortable on television. This could be a whole nother vertical." And I said, "No, I don't want to push it. If it's supposed to happen, it will happen authentically. I never want to I'm not the kind of person that would want to get on television and tell my story and be like a Real Housewife or a Southern Charm person. That's just not my personality. That's just not me. But if it comes to me authentically and it feels right and it feels safe, then I will explore it." And, the universe is crazy, because within less than a year of me saying that to Libba, an opportunity came across our desks, and I met with the producers, and it happened very quickly. And we shot a pilot, and SCETV really backed the entire program. And the next thing I knew, we had a 10-part docuseries, which is crazy. And not just that, but then it aired in 96% of the country. And then we won a Peabody Award for it, which I still don't even know what that is. It all happened during the pandemic. So things were kind of crazy. And then they asked us to do a second season. And, it's just one of those things. It's like life's little surprises. It's such a gift. We're so honored. And to be able to tell my story, hopefully we'll get eyes on the brand, which is a great marketing plan, but also hopefully it will help and inspire other people that are going through the same thing or wanting to go through the same thing of starting a business, being in the thick of being in a business. It is so, so, so hard, as you know. Even when you think you have all the right people on the bus, you don't. Even when you think that you have all your finances in control, you don't. And that's the stuff that we don't see on social media and is not talked about. So everybody sees, all the shiny, glittery stuff, but the hard part is the business of business.
The fact that you've won awards for the docuseries is impressive. The fact that you have your own cookbook, that you've opened up all these eateries. I think, people kind of approach this now and think, well, maybe the timing was right for you. But to me, it seems like there's authentic marketing at play here that's resonating with customers and building loyalty through there. So what kind of advice would you give, or do you give, to new brands who are looking to start out that are kind of trying to follow a similar trajectory to you?
Don't quit. Don't quit. It's the hardest part. and it only gets harder as you grow. So make sure you know why you're doing it, what you want to come out of it, and don't quit. And the quitting comes, I don't know, I haven't quit yet. That's not to say one day I won't, but the quitting usually comes when you have you're done, you're spent. Your passion for the drive for the cause has gone because you can't do it anymore. And I hope that means that you truly weren't passionate about it. So far, 19 years in, I've had some really, really hard days and difficult decisions, even in the last few months. I mean, people think it gets easier. As you get bigger, it just gets harder and harder. And especially for our brand, because we are not funded or backed by anyone. I'm 100% owner, and I'm funding it with my dollars or with the company's dollars. And when you're not making a lot of money, that becomes very difficult to continue to do, especially if you're trying to grow. So you can't quit. And so every day I go to bed and I wake up the next morning and I go, okay, we got to start again on the hardest of days. You got to have a great attitude, and you just have to go again. And I firmly believe that there's a reason why I am continuing to do this. And I have to believe that if I continue to work hard and I have a good attitude and I try to make the best decisions for the business, whether those are really tough decisions or not that can affect other people, that's all I know to do. And that is my true authentic self. I mean, it is starting, running, owning a business is like birthing a child. You don't quit on it, no matter how hard it gets. You're a parent forever. It's my firstborn. So that's how I feel about it. That's my advice.
It's hard. You wake up every morning and it's kind of like, all right, what's going to happen today? What kind of challenges
the shit show of the day? That is what I say happen every morning. I don't say it that way. I
exactly.
Wake up, and I think being a problem solver as a business owner, you have to have that hat on at all times, because every day there's a different problem. And nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about that you literally are solving puzzles every day, all day, and moving one thing around. You get it straight and you're like, I feel so accomplished. And then you wake up the next morning and there's another one right there in front of you. But here's the thing about problems. If you don't have problems, you're in bigger trouble than if you have problems. Because if you don't have problems, it means that you're not growing, you're not pushing yourself. The challenges are coming from you pushing through the next door to get to the next level. And sometimes you have to go back 3 doors to get to the next door. I mean, it's a constant 2 step forwards, 1 step back. And that is at least the dance that I have experienced. And I would imagine that's because I don't know what I don't know. I'm learning by my mistakes. And I don't have an endless bucket of money to just be like, well, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. And so managing all of that the pressure is intense.
When you think about not having the endless bucket of money, obviously there are lots of CPG brands we've seen emerge over the past 4 years since COVID that have lots of venture funding, and there's a lot of money behind it. But I think there's something to be said for doing this yourself when it's your money on the line. You're a bit more careful with your decisions, I would say. At least that's what I've seen. Or if you take a different approach. I wouldn't say you're more careful, but you're more thoughtful because it truly does affect you and you have a much deeper connection. Has there ever been a point where you've been, hey, I want to take venture money? It seems like it'd be much easier. I'm sure that happens all the time to you. What's kind of holding you back from doing that?
That's a great question. And it's definitely something that I have met with different venture funds and gotten a couple of offers. But I think the timing wasn't right. We weren't where we are today. I always joke that we're the 19-year-old startup. I have to remember why I started the business, and that was to create a lifestyle business that was within my passion. Just because that is why I started the business, it doesn't mean that that's my same goal today. Our 3 daughters are grown. I have 2 in high school, 1 in college. I see that there is a runway that I didn't see when I started the business. And so I know that there is an opportunity for us and that we're barely scratching the surface, mainly because we're still making it by hand and we don't have the backing and the expertise and the C-suite that we would need to really scale the business. But I am definitely very close to looking at whatever opportunities out there exist, because I either have to go one of two ways. I either have to find a partner that can help me scale it because I can't do it. I don't know how to do that. Or I have to take it back to the old days and just totally change what I've been trying to do for the last 3 years, which is scale it on my own. And I'm not sure where we will end. It's kind of up in the air, but I'm exploring all of those options.
There's a level of kind of, wanting to maintain that, it's your baby and stuff like that. But I think that at a certain point, it feels like, okay, I've grown this baby. It's time to move it into the next stage of its, of its life, move it into adulthood. If you do scale a business like this with outside money, or you're able to do it yourself, what's next? Kind of what do you feel like is next in the evolution of a brand like Callie's Hot Little Biscuit?
That is a great question, and one that I think about a lot. And the part that kind of stinks from a creative standpoint is that when you do make that leap and you decide to scale the business and you take on a partner, you don't get to make all the decisions anymore, right? And everybody's focused on the money and what's going to make them the most and what vertical is the one that we want to go after. And so that is probably part of why I haven't taken money before now. But I also feel strongly that I have reached my goals. If I continue to make more goals and reach those, that will have to be with an outside partner. And I'm fine with that. But I also know, and I have no ego in it, I'm okay with doing what I do best. And scaling is not. I've been trying to do it and I'm roadblock after roadblock. That doesn't mean that I'm not incredibly proud of what I've done. It just means that just going back to the beginning with the Piggly Wiggly, I need help. I cannot continue to do it on my own. It's just not working the way. It's really hard to describe it, but I've tried to put people in the position to help me internally and it's not working. So I have to go out and find experts that know CPG, that know how to scale a business. And that's easy to do, but you just got to make sure you pick the right partner. So my role will be holding on to the story, making sure that we stay authentic, continuing to tell the story and message the journey, and making sure that we're still putting out a great product with a great brand. That would be my role if we do that.
Well, I think you're clearly an expert on that side of things. What's kind of a piece of contrarian marketing advice that you've gotten that kind of challenges conventional wisdom?
Oh my gosh. That's a hard question. I think that people think that it's a lot easier than it is. And so if you market yourself and you put yourself out there, then it will come. And I think that in our society in America, it is bigger, 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 more, and faster. And that is in part because we have a lot of money out there that is being funneled into businesses and it's making it look a lot easier than it is. And so I would say, yeah, you can market it, you can do all that, but it's not an overnight. It's rare that it's an overnight success. It takes so much work and so much grit and hustle and never ending. And doors are being shut every day, but there are also doors that are being open. And so you have to be okay with that. because it is incredibly lonely and deflating and difficult. But then, you think about, you get this big win, right? So I got a TV show that could market to the entire country. But I'm so busy trying to make the business run profitably and run smoothly and grow that I don't even have time to celebrate that. I don't have time to celebrate that we're selling millions of dollars of pimento cheese in Costco because I'm trying to make the business run. It's, I'm not making biscuits anymore and I'm not making pimento cheese anymore because I'm just trying to make the business run. It's not very much about the product for me personally anymore. It is about running the business. And I didn't realize that when I got into it, I that was never a thought. That's also because I didn't have the vision that I have today for it. So to me, that's very contrarian, because most people say, I'm starting this business because I'm passionate about biscuits and pimento cheese, which I am. But it's not really about that anymore. I mean, I feel that passion for the business, but it is not me going in and putting on an apron and making some biscuits and walking out the door. It is sitting down and crunching numbers and figuring out how are we going to make payroll and all the things that happen in a business. But it's less about why I started it and more about the business. And I think you don't know that when you're new, and you probably don't know that because if you did, you wouldn't start one because it's so hard. And it's like childbirth. You forget so that you can have another child, because if you remembered, you'd go, I'm not doing that again. And as my husband says to me almost every night, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Well, that's great advice from your husband. And it's been really great to catch up with you. Carrie, how can people follow you online? Where can they find you?
Well, please come visit us at calliesbiscuits.com. Of course, you'll find lots of delicious handmade biscuits in many flavors, and pimento cheese and biscuit crackers and grits and all the accoutrements that go with all things Southern. And if you are on Instagram, we'd love to have you follow us at Callie's Biscuits, Callie's Hot Little Biscuit, and also me, Carrie Morey. And and check out How She Rolls on PBS. You can Google it. Yep, it's wherever TV is aired. It airs everywhere, Amazon Prime, wherever, PBS. Check your local educational television listings.
Carrie, thanks for being on The Marketing Factor. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Thank you, and look forward to seeing you soon.